Now, I'm not going to take a whole lot of time. Let me see. What does the schedule say I have to do here? I was supposed to make copies last night, but I couldn't find a copy machine, so that's all right. I'll just read it 2 or 3 times. You got it. All right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to go till about 2:15, I guess, or somewhere thereabouts, and then we're going to take another break. Now, and I feel better. I know Phil's got this wireless microphone, but I'm going to use this one as well, if that's okay. You're not going to screw things up? Fine. All right. Now, we already know that one of the major events, if not the major historical event in this country, we all saw occur almost 4 years ago. The most horrendous attack on this continent in the history of this continent that we know about. Of course, I'm talking about what happened on September 11th. Now, most of you, as through a hand raising we had a couple minutes ago, have already seen 9/11 in plain sight. And for those of you that haven't seen it, I please encourage you to get a copy of it and use your own judgment. Think for yourself. Don't believe me or anybody else. Believe your own eyes. Because what your eyes will see in this video with photographs and video clips are going to completely challenge the official story of what happened on September 11th. Now, those of us that dare step outside of the cage, some folks say the box, but a box you can get out of. A cage is very difficult to get out of. And thinking outside of the cage is a term that I use because so many of us that have been brought up watching the mainstream media are imprisoned because we base our schema of the world on the information that's provided to us. Now, let's use some common sense here. Again, this is thinking outside of the cage. How many of you heard the term or the saying, the truth is never easy to find? How many have heard that? Oh, more of you have heard it than that. Come on, the truth is never easy to find. Many of you, okay, yeah, I saw, okay. Well, that's true. The truth is never easy to find. So if that's true, how easy is it for us to sit on our couches or our easy chairs with a remote control and channel surf between Fox and MSNBC and CBS and ABC and NBC and CNN, Bloomberg, and how easy is that? It's real easy. So if the truth is never easy to find, how much truth could there be? They serve that to you on a silver platter every single day. And what is the news according to what they tell you? It's Michael Jackson, it's Scott Peterson, it's Robert Blake, it's Michael Jackson, it's Robert Blake. It's all of the stuff that they put before you. But the news, the things that you're hearing, you didn't hear anything about depleted uranium that Joyce just shared with you folks. You don't hear that on any of the mainstream networks. They don't show you these horrendous photographs of birth defects that are occurring with over 50% of the babies that are being born in Iraq. They don't show you that. There's a lot that they don't show you. And if we base our belief system and we base our schema of the world is based upon the information that they give us, but they're giving us just garbage. They're giving us inquiring minds want to know type of news. What does that say about our opinions? The opinions are based upon misinformation and lies. That means the opinions we form are extensions of those lies. Now, I don't want to go off on a soapbox here, but there's so much important information that is being withheld from the American people. And when it comes to something as important as 9/11, and that event has kicked off what I believe is going to eventually turn into a global thermonuclear exchange at this point. Now, how many times have we heard George Bush on television talking about, well, we got to stop the axis of evil, and we have to think about North Korea and Iran, and maybe do a preemptive strike. How many times has he talked about a preemptive strike in the past couple of years? So many, I can't even count them. What makes him or us think that the rest of the world isn't looking in this direction, considering the same option? And what responsibility do we have to force our elected officials, our public servants, to do our bidding? Again, we're stuck in this cage. We have public servants. Now think about it. Public servants. They're servants. How is it that the governor lives in a governor's mansion? Yeah. Our senators and our representatives drive around in chauffeur-driven limousines, and they serve one term and they get a retirement for life. They get perks and pensions and health and all kinds of stuff because they're the servants. What's wrong with this picture? We're supposed to be the masters, and we're the ones living in the hovels and the huts, and they're the ones living in and working in mansions and marble buildings, and they have everything paid for, and they're the servants? Now, September 11th has changed the world, and it is still changing the world. With all these laws and all this legislation that's passing, we are slowly, incrementally, and very deliberately falling into slavery. We're not doing it. We got all these laws and Model States Emergency Health Powers Act and Homeland Security and Patriot Act and all this other stuff that's happening. Now they're talking about is it okay to use tasers on kids? They tasered a 6-year-old kid the other day. Yeah, we're talking about it. What was it? It was in the USA Today, was it, Joyce, that you read the article about tasering a 6-year-old kid? And there was a line in there, it says, "It is unclear as to whether or not anyone has died because of tasering." Wait a minute. How is it unclear? Either it killed somebody or it didn't. Oh, it killed him a little bit. It's like a little bit pregnant or something, you know? But this is what's going on. And why is it going on? Because America is not standing up to what is screaming at them. They're turning off the button with their own common sense. Now, I'm going to run some of these clips here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the hits. And by the way, one gentleman told me that the New American Bulletin, he has a copy of it. Joyce, did you hear that? We've been looking for that. The New American Bulletin, he's got a copy of it. So we're going to hear about that. But, all right, I'm going to kick this off a little bit. We're just going to take a couple clips. Now, this is not the actual video, 9/11 in Plain Sight. This is some segments. But I want to start off with one of the most damning pieces.
But as we went through all these photographs, we could find no pictures whatsoever showing a tail, a nose, a fuselage, wings, engine, wheels, luggage, seats, nothing. There were no photographs showing any recognizable wreckage from a 757. Furthermore, when you look at the size of the hole at the Pentagon, it was approximately 65 feet across, and the height of the Pentagon is approximately 73 feet. From wingtip to wingtip, a 757 is 124 feet 10 inches. From nose to tail, a 757 is 155 feet and 3 inches in length, and the height is 44 feet and 6 inches. However, when you look at the hole at the Pentagon, you'll find that it's only approximately 65 feet across. How does a plane of those dimensions fit into a hole only 65 feet across? Upon further inspection, we found that the damage at the Pentagon was completely and totally inconsistent with the damage of the planes that had hit the World Trade Center. I mean, after all, the planes that hit the Trade Center created a fire so intense that it fatigued the steel and collapsed the buildings, or so that's what we were told. And yet, when you look at the left side of the Pentagon, you'll note that there is very little, if any, smoke damage or heat damage at all. On the third floor, it's very plain to see a file cabinet with a computer monitor. Neither of them are damaged. On the second floor, you can see a wooden desk. It hasn't burned. And on the first floor, a very curious sight indeed, a wooden stool with a book that is laying and open. The pages aren't even singed. Now, each of the planes involved in the September 11th attacks had embarked upon transcontinental flights, which means that they had a majority of their fuel left over when they hit their respective targets. That means that approximately 8,600 remaining gallons of fuel would have been ignited on the 757 that had hit the Pentagon. Again, we look at the photograph and ask ourselves, is the smoke and heat damage consistent with that amount of fuel being ignited?
Now, a lot of those pictures are pictures that you may have seen in magazines or on television specials, etc., etc. However, a lot of the photographs that challenge the official story were never shown. Now, many folks basically, you know, they believe what they say and they believe what the media tells them. Now, the difference between the presentation of 9/11 in plain sight and what you would see on television is as follows. On TV, when you're watching network news or you're reading through a mainstream publication, they'll show you a picture and they'll tell you what you're seeing. In this presentation, we show you the photographs and video clips and ask you, what do you see? If you see this, doesn't it lead to this question? I mean, this is common sense stuff. Now, most of you raised your hand when I asked if you had seen 9/11 in plain sight. Let me ask you, if there's anybody that feels at any time that I theorized or engaged in conspiracy theorizing, please holler out. Was there any conspiracy theory at all in there? Anybody? No, there wasn't. It's basically presenting information, looking at it, using common sense, and then asking common sense questions. And you see, the knee-jerk reaction is that you're a conspiracy theorist. So as a result, and obviously there must have been some very serious feathers that ruffled with the release of this video, because in March of this year, they released an article, cover story in Popular Mechanics magazine. Since when does Popular Mechanics get involved with this type of stuff? Chertoff, that's right. Ben Chertoff. He's the science researcher for Popular Mechanics magazine. James Meigs is the editor, and that name Chertoff is really familiar. It seems that there's this guy, Michael Chertoff, that was just recently made director of the Department of Homeland Security. And yes, they are cousins. Now, the interesting thing is that there are publications out there that rely upon government reports, official Pentagon studies, that are going to tell you exactly what you see. Now, one of these government studies was put out by the American Society of Civil Engineers at Purdue University, and that has become, quote unquote, the Bible of the conventional story about what happened at the Pentagon. It's been quoted over and over by Popular Mechanics magazine and also by the New American magazine in an article published in last month's edition written by William F. Jasper. And today, by the way, is day 37, I think it is, 35, 36, 37, 38 of the Jasper, thank you, of the Jasper Watch. We are still waiting for him to contact us and respond to the letter that I wrote to him. But anyway, I'm going to show you what came out from the Pentagon, and this is the animation that they put on CNN. We did not have this when we put the first version of 9/11 in plain sight out. This was not available to us. But we did get a copy of it, and I want you to watch very carefully. And this was, again, this is the computer analysis, the animation that was provided by the American Society of Civil Engineers that proves that the 757 hit the Pentagon. Use your head and watch it your own self.
In January of 2003, the entire issue was resurrected when the American Society of Civil Engineers released a report entitled The Pentagon Building Performance Report. The announcement was made on CNN, and they showed an animated video that illustrated how the 757 slammed into the Pentagon and took out 50 support columns. Let's take another look at this computer-generated animation from the American Society of Civil Engineers at Purdue. And as we look at this plane, ask yourself this question. What significant information was overlooked in this computer graphic model from the American Society of Civil Engineers? Well, first of all, the 18.5-inch steel-reinforced concrete exterior wall of the Pentagon was omitted. Second of all, you'll note that when the tail section enters the Pentagon, it remains intact. How is it possible that the tail section, over 40 feet in height, would have remained intact as it entered the Pentagon and left no entry point, as is seen in this photograph? Thirdly, and probably the most significant omission of all, is that the engines are missing in this computer graphic model. Despite these omissions, the American Society of Civil Engineers claimed that the plane took out 50 support columns as it entered the Pentagon. When we again look at these photographs, I ask, do you see support columns that have been destroyed? Which support columns were destroyed? How could it possibly be that the American Society of Civil Engineers could release such a report when the photographs clearly show that the entire report is in question? Now let's look at a computer-generated animation that was broadcast on the National Geographic television program Seconds from Disaster, in which they dealt with the attack on the Pentagon on September 11th. In this computer-generated animation, they show that the wings broke off before the plane entered the first ring. Question: if the plane's wings broke off, then why didn't we see any wing parts in the photographs that we examined earlier? Furthermore, in this computer-generated animation, it clearly shows the plane almost completely disintegrating as it passes through the first ring. Question: how could it have continued along its path and pierced another 7.5 feet of steel-reinforced concrete, piercing the second and third rings of the Pentagon, and leave this hole? You can't have it both ways.
Now again, that video is extremely telling because of the fact that this is being used as the demarcation point, or whatever words that I'm looking for here. This is what the mainstream media and publications are all using to reference the official story. And in that 30 seconds, just 30 seconds of clip, a video clip that they produced, not us, we can clearly see that they left out some of the most significant and important pieces of the plane. There was no engine on those planes. Now, everyone that we've seen, that we've shown this to, that has any smarts at all, in other words, airline pilots, we've shown this to military folks, and there's not one of them. Well, there is one airline pilot that didn't agree simply because he was in denial. He simply said, I can't go along with this because if what you're showing me is true, the reality of it is too horrible to even contemplate. So, I mean, I can't accept this. I can't. I won't. But aside from him, we talked to 24 pilots. 23 of them have basically come back with an, oh my God, this is really important stuff. None of them have refuted it. Talked to, I don't know how many folks heard the interview a couple weeks ago with retired Air Force Colonel George Green. Did anybody hear that? George, was it George Green? Joyce, what was his name? George Green, okay. And then, oh yeah, last week we talked to a retired two-star general, Bert Stubblebine. These people are saying, we're hitting the hammer on the head here. You can't refute this information. It just can't be done. But there are folks that will continue to do so. But anyway, I'm going to jump around a couple of other things here. Now, the biggest controversy that's been raised from the release of this video is this issue about the pod. The pod. How many do not know what the pod issue is about? Raise your hand. Okay, there's a couple of you out there. Okay, now if you've never seen these clips, okay, raise your hand again. I want to see those hands. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 10 of you out there. So you haven't seen these pictures of this pod. Okay, I'm not going to say anything about the pod. Let you be the decision maker here. You decide what you're seeing, and then we'll get your response afterwards, okay? And look, at pro or con, I welcome all and any responses. This is open discussion here. Here we go.
Let's look at this photograph that was taken near Ground Zero. On the right, we see the South Tower, and the smoke that's rising into the sky is emanating from the North Tower, which is completely hidden from view. On the left, just entering the field of vision of the camera, we see the plane just before it hits the South Tower. Note a couple of items here. The engine on the right wing has a shadow, and the shadow moves towards the front of the plane and off of the plane. So the anomaly that appears to be attached to the belly of this plane could not be caused by a shadow. Also note that the item that appears to be attached to the belly of this plane is on the right side. This plane has something that is not symmetrical on the bottom of the plane. When we compare that with the bottom of a regular 767, we'll note that a normal 767 has a belly that is smooth. This plane does not. In the summer of 2003, in Barcelona, Spain, a publication by the name of La Vanguardia did an investigative report on the plane that slammed into the South Tower. After a thorough digital image analysis performed by a Spanish university, the investigators came to the conclusion that the anomaly was three-dimensional in nature and could not have been caused by shadows or reflections. Question: is it outside the realm of possibilities that an object of this size and shape could be attached to the belly of a plane of this type?
Okay, now this is just a couple of the clips that deals with this issue called the pod. Now, for those of you that have never seen those clips before, let me ask you. Now, I want to say, I see you right there in the front, in the second row there. Did you see something that appears to be attached to the belly of the plane? Yeah, you, ma'am. You did, didn't you? Now, let's ask this question, and this is why this is so important. We're talking about a plane that was reported to have been Flight 175, a Boeing 767, that had departed from Boston Logan International Airport approximately an hour earlier. And we have to ask this question. If this was a commercial airliner, don't we think that a baggage handler, food service personnel, fuel handlers, people that with the flashlights that go like this, you know, crew members, passengers, pilots, maintenance, control tower, somebody would have seen something this big attached to the belly of the plane. Wouldn't you think so? So now we have to ask a common sense question. Condemn me for doing so. So many others have. The question is, if there was something this big attached to the belly of the plane, how could it have taken off from Boston Logan at all? Was that Flight 175? Were the planes switched? Now, these are questions that people are absolutely freaking out when they hear these questions. They don't want to hear the question, and for sure they don't want to know the answer. But common sense demands that we ask these questions, because when you look at the photographs, to not ask the questions is to just remain in absolute ignorant bliss. It's our job to ask questions, because the official story has got so many holes in it. Here's common sense, folks. Does anybody know how much money they spent investigating Monica Lewinsky and the cigar? Does anybody know? $300 million to investigate the impeachment of President Bill Clinton. $300 million to look at Monica Lewinsky's face and consider what was going on in the Oval Office. Because inquiring minds want to know. Now, how much money do you suppose the 9/11 Commission spent investigating September 11th? $60 million. What is wrong with that picture? We want to leave no stone unturned. We sure as heck don't want to pay for it. Give me a break. Okay, now, I'm going to go right on through here, and we're going to look at a couple other things here. Let me see, where is it? There's a Flight 175. Okay, we're going to take another look at some of the issue about this pod, and then we're going to move into the real issue about this flight, which was the flash. We'll talk about that in a second.
That was not American Airlines. That was not an American Airlines.
The plane was a larger plane. It did look as large as that, but it did look like that.
And dove to the other side and crashed right in. An explosion was so terrific it looked like it had dynamite in it. The ball of fire that came flying out of that one was even worse than the first one. And we were standing there and I said, I can't believe this. And sure enough, there it was, another plane. The plane wasn't no airline or anything. It was a twin-engine, big gray plane.
Mark Bernbach, a Fox employee, is on the phone with us. Mark witnessed this from what we understand. Mark, were you close enough to be able to see any markings on the airplane?
Hi, gentlemen. How you doing? Yeah, there was definitely a blue logo. It was like a circular logo on the front of the plane, towards the definitely towards the front. It definitely did not look like a commercial plane. I didn't see any windows on the sides, and definitely very low. And I'm completely panicked. I'm you're freaking out. I cannot believe what I just saw.
We are all shaken by this. We are watching the video now back live, but the upper floors of the World Trade Center in Manhattan in flames now after apparently two large airplanes. We're talking about jetliners here, slammed into the sides right around 9 o'clock this morning. Mark, if what you say is true, those could be cargo planes or something like that. You said you didn't see any windows in the side?
I didn't see any windows on the sides. I saw the plane flying low. I was probably like a block away from the subway in Brooklyn, and that plane came down very low. And again, it was not a normal flight that I've ever seen at an airport. It was a plane that had a blue logo on the front, and it did not look like it belonged in this area.
Okay, now I'm going to run that flash in a series of sequences here. Let me see, where is it here? Okay, I'm going to run this and then I'm going to wrap this up. Now this is just going to run, there are the four different angles. Look at the upper left corner, the CNN one. Now watch carefully. You can see a flash, bang, right there. Now you can also see in that video clip a good view of the undercarriage. Now that's the pod issue. But let's put the pod on the back burner for a second. Let's take another look at it. And you can see on all different angles, look at the angle in the lower right corner. Here it comes. Watch carefully. Here it is. Right there. Look at the flash and the reflection in the fuselage. Now, we can postulate, what is this flash? Now, some folks said it's a reflection. Now, as I just mentioned, a reflection is only going to be seen from one angle. Here you're seeing it from four different angles. Not only that, but the flash occurs on the shaded side of the plane. So we can rule out reflection right there on the shaded side. Now, what else could it be? They said, well, it was sparks of the nose of the plane hitting the concrete, created sparks. Well, if that were the case, look again at where the flash occurs. It doesn't occur where the nose makes contact. It's to the right and below center, right there, of the fuselage. So we can rule out sparks. Third explanation. Well, it was a static discharge. That's what it was, a static discharge. Well, again, if you're charged with static electricity and you put your finger out and you go to touch something, it's not going to jump off of your elbow. It's going to go from the closest point of impact. And as you can see, again, the flash does not occur where the nose is about to make contact. Not only that, but every single pilot I've talked to said it couldn't have possibly been a static discharge because they're all equipped with what's called a static wick that dissipates the static discharge, the static electricity, and would not have caused that. So the only fourth possibility that I could think of, and I'm open for suggestion, I want to find out what's going on, the only fourth possibility is something incendiary in nature, a bomb, a missile, a laser cannon. Where would a bomb or a missile or something like that come from? Well, now we go back to the issue of the pod. The pod is apparently on the right side of the plane and hanging out of the bottom. Now, there in the CNN footage, you can see it right there. Now, look at the flash. Is it or is it not in line? Here it comes with the pod. Bingo. Does that not indicate that there is a pod? Does it not indicate that maybe we're not dealing with a static discharge or a reflection or something like that? We are dealing with something incendiary in nature. And what does that have to do with a terrorist hijacking some guys inside with plastic knives? And why won't the mainstream media deal with this issue? I wrote an article and it's entitled, "It's the Flash, Stupid!" And they won't deal with the flash because that footage right there that you're looking at, right there, refutes the official story and blows it right to kingdom come. Now, because of the volatility of this information, anyone such as myself or Phil J. Han or anybody else that talks about these issues are immediately attacked. Like I said, Popular Mechanics did a hit piece in the March edition. They went after Eric Hufschmid, they went after me, they went after Phil J. Han, they went after, said the debunking the lies of September 11th. Conspiracy theory, wacko, nutcase, right-wing extremist, left-wing extremist, neo-Nazi skinhead, militia member, kook, wacko. Okay? But that's the way they handle it. Now, most recently, the New American magazine, excuse the expression, but they pantsed themselves. I'm basically taking some super glue and gluing it around their ankles. William F. Jasper did an 8-page hit piece on this video in their May edition. I did a word search, and if you've been to our website, please go to thepowerhour.com, and right there when the page loads, you'll see JBS and New American attack Dave vonKleist. I have nothing to hide. I want you to see what they said. I want you to use your head. But I did a word search. And I checked out the big stories that the New American has covered. And the New American really held Michael New very closely to their hearts. We all know Michael New, the UN issue. In the first 6 months of their publication, of that issue, of the Michael New issue back in '95, they did 3 articles for a total, I think it was about 3,000 words, 3,387 words. And that's all 3 articles put together for 6 months. And then there's the Oklahoma City issue. And in one period of time, I think we covered another 6 months. They added up all the articles, and they did, I think it was 2,700 words. And that's based over 3 months and 3 articles. In this one edition, last month's edition, they did 4,900 words, desperately trying to debunk and draw attention away from the questions raised here. And they basically did a lousy job, I have to say. They did not address any of the real issues that are brought up at 9/11 in plain sight, and they stuck pretty much with the conventional story. But to add insult to injury, what Mr. Jasper did is that there's another cover story about agents provocateur. And there was an article in there that says, vonKleist, reporter or provocateur. And they dredged up an issue that happened about 4 years ago, just before September 11th, where I went up to Klamath Falls. How many listeners remember when I went up there? Do you have, a couple of you guys do? I went up there not once, but twice. I went up there first time for the big rally. This was about all the farmers and ranchers having their water shut off by the feds, the Department of Land Management. And so they had, all these farmers and ranchers were being forced off of their homes, and all the Northwest was bringing in water. They had flatbeds with gallon jugs of people that had filled up from their taps and sent it down to them. It was a big rally and, the whole thing. And I went up to cover it. I got to meet the organizers of the event and the people that were researching the ownership of the head gate of the Klamath Lake. So in doing so, I became friends with them and covered the whole thing, and then I came back here to Missouri. Well, I got a phone call from the head organizer. Her name was Barbara Martin. A couple days later, she says, Dave, guess what I found? I've been researching it, and we found out that the head gate is owned by the ranchers and the farmers. The feds are trespassing, and we're going to serve them papers and ask them to leave. And we're going to take back what is rightfully ours this weekend. I suggest you come back up here. So I grabbed a friend of mine to run video, and we both went back up there. And she said she was very concerned because there might be violence breaking out when they cross the fence to go into the head gate. We want to make sure that there are no people that instigate violence. I said, great, because I'll be videotaping. That's what I went up there for. Mr. Jasper was there too. He knows why I was there. But he decided to report that I was up there to instigate. And when the video cameras from the networks got there, he said, quote, that's when vonKleist went into action and put on a show. Didn't show into the video. He said, people wondered aloud if vonKleist was an agent provocateur sent in to do that. Really? Which people? What did they say? It was a fabrication. Barbara Martin came on a couple days later on our radio show and basically said, Mr. Jasper either wasn't there or he's lying. And I'm thrilled to death that he's doing what he's doing. So now we're in, day 38 of the Jasper Watch, and we'll continue to watch. But they are doing anything that they can to sort of knock down anybody that has the guts to talk about this stuff. So I'm going to wrap this thing up. We're going to take another 10-minute break. And I would ask, first of all, if you'd like to get a copy, well, we do have the videos back here. But if you want to also get the Beyond Treason, which is about to come out, we don't have them here, obviously, but they will be out in about 2 weeks. Please give us a call at the Power Hour, 877-817-9829, or you can go to thepowerhour.com, and you can order Beyond Treason. But as far as this video is concerned, you have my permission to get a copy and make copies. Get this thing out there. It's not about copyrights. It's not about, saving profits. We're trying to avert a global thermonuclear exchange here because the rest of the world has seen these videos. They've got all this stuff. This is circulating all over the world. 9/11 in plain sight has been shown on television in Japan, in Romania, in Spain, in Portugal, in Australia, and a bunch of other countries. I'm not even sure, but it's being shown on television around the world. It's being distributed around the world. The rest of the world sees this stuff. And that's why I say, folks, there is no reason why we shouldn't consider the next time that GW's got his fotch on television saying, preempt distract, that they could be considering the same thing against us. And they would have darn good reason. Unless America stands up and we truly rediscover what our heritage is, to be patriotic, to understand that we are the masters, they are the servants, so we better start acting that way. Because if we don't, we're going to get everything that we deserve. So please, get 9/11 in plain sight out, and if you've got tough questions, please ask them. I'm looking for answers, and I hope you are too. That said, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back. Thank you.